Imagine for a moment that being alone is not a way to run away. Instead, imagine it is a doorway that only the most observant people are brave enough to walk through. Think about this idea very carefully, because today we are going to explore a truth that has walked alongside some of the greatest minds in history. Why do the most intelligent people often pull away from social life? This is a journey into the deep psychological, philosophical, and emotional parts of human nature. We will be guided by the thoughts of Arthur Schopenhauer. He was perhaps one of the clearest thinkers to ever look closely at the silence of the human soul.
If you stay with me until the very last lesson of this video, I promise that you will understand something important. You will understand not only why brilliant minds tend to isolate themselves, but also why this habit might show something essential about your own inner world. The last secret is the most powerful of all. It is one that has the power to change the way you see your relationships, your success, your purpose, and even your identity. You do not want to miss it. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment with your thoughts, and share this video. Tell me in the comments, do you feel that the more you grow, the less patience you have for shallow things? Your answer may uncover clues about your own mental and philosophical growth.
Arthur Schopenhauer argued that most people's energy is aimed at outside distractions, crowds, noise, entertainment, and the constant need for excitement. All of these act as shields. They help people avoid facing the deeper layers of themselves. He believed that the average person is not interested in looking inside themselves. This is because it requires courage and clarity, and for many people, clarity is frightening. Meanwhile, those who have a more refined mind naturally take a different path. Instead of running away from themselves, they feel a magnetic pull toward being alone. Their minds are too active, too curious, and too complex. They cannot be constantly stuck in environments filled with shallow talk, emotional ups and downs, or empty interactions. Solitude becomes the space where their thoughts can breathe, grow, and improve. Schopenhauer goes further. He says that intelligent individuals do not escape society because they think they are better than others. They escape because they simply do not fit in. Their inner world is simply too rich to constantly adapt to the expectations, demands, and speed of social life. While most people seek excitement from the outside, the deep thinker gets excitement from the inside. The everyday conversations that many find enough feel empty to someone whose mind is always questioning, analyzing, and observing. This explains why so many of history's great thinkers lean toward isolation. Friedrich Nietzsche describes solitude as the environment where the strongest spirits are made. Albert Einstein often chose to walk alone for hours just to think in silence. Carl Jung emphasized that the deeper one's inner world becomes, the more necessary solitude becomes for mental balance. These individuals were not antisocial. They were simply operating on a frequency that the majority cannot tune into. Think about yourself for a moment. Have you ever been in a room full of people, surrounded by noise and conversation, yet felt completely disconnected? Not because the people were bad, but because the interactions felt shallow, repetitive, or predictable. If you have experienced this feeling, you may already understand what Schopenhauer described. Intelligent people are not bored because they think they are above others. They are bored because their minds crave depth, meaning, and reality. Another crucial point Schopenhauer raises is the weight of energy. Social interactions, even pleasant ones, require emotional and mental effort. For people who think deeply, this cost is often higher. Their ability to absorb information is intense. Therefore, their tiredness afterward is also intense. This is why many choose smaller circles, shorter interactions, or carefully selected environments. It is not a rejection of humanity. It is a form of self-protection. Solitude gives them access to something precious, interrupted thought, the space to look at life without noise, to observe themselves without judgment, to create ideas without interference. Schopenhauer believed that solitude is the home of originality, and modern psychology supports this. Studies from researchers such as Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi show that solitude helps create flow states, creativity, and internal clarity. Neuroscience suggests that the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for deep thought and looking inward, becomes most active when we are alone and not distracted. But this is only the beginning. In the next part, we will explore how modern psychology, neuroscience, and even sociology confirm Schopenhauer's ideas. We will see why intelligent individuals experience the world through a different emotional and mental lens. We will also reveal how this affects their relationships, their goals, and their inner peace. And remember, the final insight of this video is the most important of all.
Imagine for a moment that everything you have ever felt about social tiredness, emotional overwhelm, or the need to protect your inner world is not a personal flaw. It is a psychological pattern shared by some of the brightest minds in history. What Schopenhauer observed through philosophy, modern science has begun to confirm with remarkable precision. And understanding this connection is essential if you want to discover why intelligent people often step back from society, not out of rejection, but out of alignment.
Schopenhauer believed that human interaction demands a constant negotiation of identity. He wrote that the presence of others can easily twist one's true self because the social world expects everyone to be the same. This insight might sound old, but it is deeply modern. Psychologist Carl Rogers, one of the pioneers of humanistic psychology, later repeated the same idea. He described how people adapt their behavior to gain acceptance.
For someone with a deep intellect or a sensitive mind, this adaptation is not just uncomfortable, it is exhausting. Think about how many layers of yourself you adjust when you enter different environments. Around coworkers, you show one version of yourself. With family, perhaps another. With strangers, yet another. This constant shifting feels natural for many, but for a highly introspective or highly intelligent individual, this fragmentation creates internal friction. They cannot pretend for long. They cannot water down their ideas, silence their curiosity, or hide their depth just to fit into a group. And so they gradually retreat into spaces where they can remain whole.
Modern neuroscience provides a powerful explanation for this. Studies show that people with higher cognitive sensitivity experience stronger activation of the prefrontal cortex during social situations. This means they process far more information, emotional nuances, and environmental details than the average person. While most individuals navigate conversations smoothly, deep thinkers are simultaneously interpreting tone, intention, context, energy, contradictions, and unspoken messages. Their minds absorb everything. And this intensity comes at a cost: rapid mental fatigue.
This is why intelligent people often prefer one-on-one conversations, long, reflective discussions, or meaningful silence instead of large social gatherings. They are not avoiding people, they are avoiding overstimulation. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said that the crowd is untruth, not because people are bad, but because depth cannot survive in noise. This resonates deeply with Schopenhauer's belief that truth grows in isolation, like a seed that only sprouts in fertile, quiet soil.
But there is another layer, one that psychology explains with surprising clarity. The emotional turbulence of social life affects deep thinkers differently. Research in personality psychology, especially studies based on what is known as the Big Five model, shows that individuals high in openness and introversion tend to have more vivid inner experiences. Their emotions are not superficial. Their reflections are not brief. Their insights are not momentary. Everything inside them runs deeper. And when your inner world is intense, loud environments and rapid social exchanges feel like interference rather than connection. Ask yourself this: how many times have you been in a social setting where something felt off, even if everyone else seemed comfortable? How often have you sensed hidden tension, emotional imbalance, or unspoken resentment? Many intelligent and sensitive individuals pick up on these layers immediately, and because they perceive more, they must process more. This is another reason why they retreat. Their empathy and intuition, although gifts, can drain them if they are not careful.
Schopenhauer captured this perfectly when he wrote that solitude is the natural refuge of the mind that sees too much. For him, the ability to enjoy one's own company was not just a sign of intelligence, it was a sign of inner richness. Meanwhile, the constant need for distraction was a sign of inner poverty. This idea might sound harsh, but it echoes through the work of modern thinkers like Viktor Frankl, who emphasized that meaning arises in silence, reflection, and self-confrontation. The more meaningful your inner world becomes, the less dependent you are on external noise. But solitude is not only about protection, it is also about freedom. Intelligent people value autonomy deeply. They want the freedom to think without interruption, to create without judgment, to observe without being pulled in every direction. Social life, with all its demands and expectations, often limits this freedom more freely. Their creativity awakens.
Neuroscientists studying creativity have found that the brain's default mode network, the system responsible for imagination, introspection, and conceptual thought, becomes most active when we are alone and not engaged in external tasks. This means that solitude literally activates the biological foundations of deep thinking. The very structure of the mind rewards intelligent individuals for seeking quiet. No wonder so many philosophers, artists, and innovators described solitude as essential for their work.
But the most interesting question is not why solitude benefits intelligent people. It is why social life often feels so draining to them. And the answer lies in another insight from Schopenhauer. He believed that intelligent individuals suffer more because they perceive reality with greater clarity. While others may glide through life with simple expectations, deep thinkers are constantly analyzing, questioning, and looking beneath the surface. Social interactions therefore expose them to layers of complexity that others do not see, complexity that demands energy, complexity that eventually pushes them into silence.
Yet, none of this means that intelligent individuals hate people or prefer complete isolation. What they seek is balance, a selective, intentional social life that supports their inner growth rather than suppressing it. They desire connections that are meaningful, conversations that are honest, relationships that respect their depth. And when they cannot find these qualities, solitude becomes a sanctuary, not a prison.
In the next part, we will explore how this tendency shapes relationships, personal choices, and emotional well-being. We will also uncover how society often misunderstands intelligent individuals, labeling them as distant or aloof, when in truth, they are simply navigating the world with heightened awareness. And remember, everything you have heard so far leads to the final revelation, the deepest truth that Schopenhauer understood about intelligence and solitude. Imagine for a moment that every relationship you have ever built, friendships, romances, family bonds, professional connections, has been shaped not only by your personality, but by the depth of your inner world. When Schopenhauer wrote about solitude and intelligence, he was not merely describing an individual preference. He was describing a pattern that influences how intelligent people connect, love, suffer, choose, and grow. And understanding this pattern can change the way you see your own relationships forever. Schopenhauer believed that the more intelligent a person is, the more they value authenticity. This is not a philosophical opinion, it is a psychological necessity. When someone's inner life is rich, complex, and constantly evolving, superficial relationships simply cannot sustain them. They crave depth, they crave sincerity, they crave connection that feels honest, not obligatory. And because such relationships are rare, they often find themselves walking alone far more than they ever planned. Think about this carefully. It is not that intelligent individuals do not want to connect. In truth, they often feel more intensely than most people. They notice details others overlook. They sense emotional shifts others cannot perceive. They love deeply. They listen intently. And they care with a kind of awareness that makes every relationship feel significant. But precisely because they experience connection so deeply, they are also more easily wounded. They feel when someone is not present. They feel when conversations are empty. They feel when authenticity is missing. And once they feel it, they withdraw. Psychologist Elaine Aron, known for her research on highly sensitive individuals, found that people with strong introspective and cognitive depth often have more reactive emotional systems. This means intelligent individuals are not just thoughtful, they are empathetically attuned. They absorb atmospheres, they sense tension, they notice contradictions. And this heightened perception makes shallow interactions feel not only unfulfilling, but sometimes emotionally draining.
This explains why many intelligent people maintain small circles. They prefer a handful of genuine connections over dozens of casual relationships. They will spend hours talking with someone who stimulates their mind, yet feel tired after 10 minutes of small talk. They would rather be alone than participate in relationships that demand emotional compromise without offering emotional nourishment. Schopenhauer captured this essence when he wrote that intelligent individuals find more in their own thoughts than the world can offer. He did not mean that others are inferior, but that the intellectual and emotional richness of their inner world is simply a different landscape. For them, spending time alone is not loneliness, it is alignment.
Yet this tendency is often misunderstood. Society tends to equate sociability with happiness, extroversion with confidence, and constant interaction with emotional health. So when intelligent individuals withdraw, they are sometimes labeled as distant, cold, or too serious. What many fail to realize is that withdrawal is not rejection, it is self-preservation. It is the mind protecting itself from environments that demand too much and offer too little. Consider relationships, especially romantic ones. Intelligent individuals often struggle with traditional expectations. They look for partners who encourage growth, who value silence, who understand the difference between solitude and abandonment. They desire someone who respects their inner world rather than trying to change it. Eastern philosopher Lao Tzu once wrote that those who understand others are insightful, but those who understand themselves are wise. Intelligent individuals seek relationships where both forms of wisdom can coexist. Modern attachment theory provides deeper insight into this. People with strong introspective tendencies often develop what psychologists call a self-contained attachment style. This does not mean disinterest, it means emotional independence. They do not rely on others to fill internal voids. Instead, they want relationships that elevate their inner clarity, not replace it. When they feel controlled or emotionally overwhelmed, they retreat, not because they lack affection, but because they need space to think, to breathe, and to remain themselves.
But here lies one of the greatest paradoxes Schopenhauer ever hinted at. The more a person understands themselves, the more selective they become with the world around them. As self-awareness deepens, tolerance for noise, superficiality, and emotional drama decreases. This is why intelligent individuals sometimes seem to drift away from social circles they once enjoyed. It is not that they changed suddenly, it is that they grew, and their environment did not grow with them.
And yet, despite their independence, intelligent individuals often hold a deep longing for meaningful connection. When they find someone who sees them clearly, who listens without judgment, and who values depth as much as they do, they form bonds that are exceptionally strong. They are loyal, devoted, and intensely present. But because such connections are rare, they guard their energy until they encounter someone who resonates on the same wavelength. This brings us to another powerful insight: social exhaustion. Intelligent individuals tire faster in social environments, not because they lack social skills, but because they process interactions more deeply. They replay conversations in their mind. They analyze meanings. They sense subtle emotional cues. They experience the world with layers upon layers of perception. While others may leave a gathering feeling energized, deep thinkers often leave feeling overstimulated. This is not weakness. It is neurological intensity. Neuroscientist Norman Geschwind discovered that individuals with heightened cognitive networks often display stronger internal associations. This means they create connections between ideas rapidly and constantly. In social situations, this ability intensifies. Every stimulus becomes data. Every tone, gesture, contradiction, and emotional detail becomes another layer to decode. It is no wonder they crave solitude afterward. Their brain needs silence to process the flood of information. But here is the most powerful part. Solitude does not diminish their ability to love, connect, or participate in life. It enhances it. Solitude gives them clarity, emotional balance, self-awareness, and creative insight. When they return to the world after spending time alone, they return stronger, more grounded, and more authentic. They connect with intention, not obligation. They listen with presence, not distraction. They love with depth, not fear.
In the next part, the final and most powerful one, we will reveal the deepest insight of all. The reason Schopenhauer believed that solitude is not a symptom of intelligence, but the birthplace of it. We will explore why the most brilliant individuals throughout history used solitude as a tool, a teacher, and a form of liberation. And we will uncover how understanding this truth can transform your own relationship with solitude, purpose, and emotional independence.
Imagine for a moment that everything you have learned so far has been preparing you for a single, profound realization, one that Schopenhauer considered essential for understanding not only intelligence, but the very structure of human existence. Throughout history, the greatest minds did not simply escape social life, they rose towards something higher. And now, in this final part, we explore the deepest truth of all. Solitude is not a retreat from the world. It is an evolution beyond it. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that solitude is the natural climate of brilliance. It is where the mind becomes free from the expectations, noise, and illusions that shape society. But more importantly, he believed that solitude is where intelligence goes beyond the ordinary limits of human perception. To him, solitude was not just a preference, it was the birthplace of clarity, originality, and wisdom. And modern research continues to confirm what he understood intuitively, that silence and isolation unlock cognitive capacities that often remain sleeping in constant social interaction.
Think about this idea carefully. When intelligent individuals withdraw from society, they are not running away. They are stepping into a dimension where their minds can expand without interruption. They gain access to deeper creativity, sharper intuition, more precise self-awareness, and a more authentic understanding of the world. Solitude becomes the forge in which their thoughts are shaped, strengthened, and purified.
Consider the great thinkers who changed the world. Isaac Newton, retreating to the countryside during the plague, where he formulated the foundations of modern physics. Nikola Tesla, spending countless hours alone in his lab, constructing entire machines in his mind before ever touching a piece of metal. Franz Kafka, describing the necessity of inner stillness to produce true literature. These individuals were not unusual exceptions. They were following the same pattern Schopenhauer described, the natural pattern of minds that operate beyond the ordinary.
But why does solitude elevate intelligence? Modern neuroscience provides a remarkable answer. The brain contains a network called the default mode system, a system responsible for introspection, imagination, long-term thinking, philosophical reflection, and complex internal processing. This network becomes most active when a person is alone and undistracted. In noisy or highly social environments, the brain switches to other systems that handle social thinking, instant responses, and basic communication. But in solitude, the deepest mental structure awakens. This means that solitude literally unlocks a different version of the mind, a version capable of seeing connections, building concepts, and understanding truth with far greater clarity.
It is not that intelligent people prefer solitude randomly. It is that solitude enables them to function at their highest potential. Schopenhauer understood this when he wrote that solitude is the only environment in which the individual becomes truly himself. Away from imitation, comparison, and social pressure, the mind returns to its natural state, observing, questioning, expanding. And in that state, it becomes capable of insights that would be impossible in a crowd. But there is another powerful dimension to this truth, one that touches the essence of human emotional life. Intelligent individuals are not only thinkers, they are feelers. They experience the world more intensely, and solitude allows them to process emotions that others ignore. In quiet moments, they confront their fears, reflect on their desires, understand their pain, and decipher the meaning behind their experiences. They do not run from themselves, they explore themselves. And through this exploration, they gain wisdom.
Psychologist Rollo May, one of the great existential thinkers, wrote that individuals grow when they confront themselves directly. Intelligent people, therefore, grow faster because they spend more time in the depths of their own psyche. Solitude becomes a form of emotional maturation. It strengthens self-control, resilience, and inner stability. It makes them less dependent on external validation and more anchored in their own values. This is why intelligent individuals often appear calm, focused, and unusually perceptive. Solitude has trained them to think before reacting, to understand before judging, to observe before speaking. They do not fear silence, they use it as a tool. And in a world full of noise, those who master silence naturally rise above.
But solitude does something even more extraordinary. It reveals truth. Schopenhauer argued that truth is often incompatible with society because society is built on appearances, roles, and expectations. To see reality clearly, one must escape the collective illusions that shape human behavior. Solitude strips away these illusions. It allows the individual to question social norms, examine beliefs, and perceive the world with unfiltered clarity. This clarity explains why intelligent individuals often feel out of place in social settings. They see contradictions others overlook. They sense manipulation, insecurity, or dishonesty immediately. They recognize the absurdity in behaviors most people accept as normal.
Their solitude has sharpened their perceptions so finely that ordinary interactions can feel like performances rather than genuine exchanges. Yet, solitude does not make them antisocial. In fact, it often makes them more compassionate. Understanding themselves deeply allows them to understand others with greater empathy. Recognizing their own flaws makes them more tolerant. Observing human nature from a distance helps them see the suffering, confusion, and longing hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Their solitude becomes a source of humanity, not detachment.
Now we reach the central revelation, the deepest truth of all, the insight that Schopenhauer considered the ultimate understanding of solitude and intelligence. Intelligent individuals withdraw from society not because they dislike the world, but because they are preparing to offer something greater to the world. Solitude is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of purpose. It is where ideas are born, where creativity awakens, where truth emerges. And when these individuals return to society, even briefly, they bring with them insights, innovations, perspectives, and wisdom that elevate humanity.
Every advancement in philosophy, science, art, and culture has come from someone who dared to step away from the world long enough to see it clearly. Solitude, therefore, is not an escape, it is a contribution. And now, as this journey comes to an end, I invite you to reflect on what solitude means in your own life. Do you use it to recharge, to think, to grow? Do you feel that isolation sometimes brings clarity no conversation could ever offer? And most importantly, what truth about yourself emerges in your quietest moments?
If this video resonated with you, subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective may help someone else understand their own journey toward authenticity, clarity, and inner strength. And remember, solitude is not loneliness. It is the space where your greatest self is born. Thanks for watching.